Where's John?
That worked.
Change it to the 8th. And everything that I wrote down, read that. Okay?
Including my notes or what?
Just read that and then we'll get a motion in a second.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'll do a roll call.
No, that's what he was saying.
The 8th.
Through the capital budget from 5 to
You're gonna have back.
7.
When? Tuesday the 8th?
Huh?
What'd you say?
The 8th. Instead of,
Tuesday.
That's election day, we're gonna meet, we just about have to.
Huh?
That is election day, we normally don't meet, but we just about have to meet. We didn't used to meet because this room was used as a
Right.
polling location, and it's not anymore, so.
So let's go this week.
That's why they're doing it, to accommodate you. Chris, are you?
Chris will be here.
Oh, so our meeting's a Thursday.
Chris will be Carolina with my daughter. Yes,
The 8th?
yes.
You guys said the 1st.
I thought you were gonna be gone next week.
I was, but I told you, the guy got backed up a week.
Oh.
So I won't be here.
Quit.
We can do it.
Oh, that's it. So,
Whatever day you all
Can't
want.
help it.
There were-
We're not saying anything like that, Chris.
I was mistaken. I
My
thought
mouse.
Chris wasn't going to
Yeah, I'm
be
gonna
here.
throw my mouse.
Okay. This is,
YouTube.
essentially, we need to pick an evening. There will be one council member out.
What am I doing?
So if we want that 1 week buffer, we still have it on the
Recess
first,
or what?
and then we have
No, it should be.
the actual
No, I-
meeting on
no,
the 15th.
Oh, yeah.
As planned before I open my
Well,
mouth.
it
How
doesn't,
about
how
that?
about the salt?
It doesn't sound like original.
Lisa, what would you like me to do?
First. I'd rather it the 1st, that way, in case something happens.
We have that extra week.
You leave me out.
Yeah, we're gonna leave you out. Watch
It's
YouTube.
on YouTube. Dial in.
So they have the 1st,
Won't be here the first either, so.
then the 15th is a special meeting.
You won't be here the 1st or the 8th.
Which is fine.
You'll be here the 1st or the 8th.
Here on the 8th?
I'll be in North Carolina with my daughter, her family.
Unite. You'll be here the first.
He won't be here the 1st or the 8th.
So why don't you skip 2 people?
Do you understand Tom's question? I looked at it and I said,
So there'll be 2 people
Oh,
missing
yeah,
the
no, it
first.
was
Right.
IT stuff Jake and I worked on, and there were two.
Beg pardon?
There's
7 o'clock.
And it is 7 o'clock. We do have to resolve this before we go. So, we won't be here the
First.
and you won't be here the first inning.
Right, because I'm gonna be in North Carolina.
Got it. So we will schedule it for the 8th. Sound okay,
Is
John?
the camera on? Is it on?
Sure.
Sound okay, Mr. Leonard?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Is that, election day, we don't have to worry about election day, do we?
Right.
Oh, I'm not, I'm kidding.
Okay. We're getting underway in about 10 seconds. 6, 5. Good evening and welcome to the Defiance City Council meeting for tonight, Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Before we get underway, we have Pastor Tyson Knopfsinger from First Church of God here in Defiance to open us up in prayer. Thanks for being our guest this evening.
Yeah, it's my honor to be with all of you. Let's pray as we begin. Lord, as we are here tonight, the words come to mind that leadership is a noble task, and so we just lift up all of those here who have that task, who are here to lead and guide our community. And we ask that you would lead us as we lead the community, that you would just fill all of those here with wisdom and insight, that they would experience even passion and joy as they lead. Ask that you would just guide them through every single conversation that they have tonight, and just show them the direction to go and the steps to take. And as I see the school on the agenda too, I just thank you for our school system and all that they do for the kids in our community the way that they not only teach them the schoolwork, but how to grow into mature and productive adults too. And so I just pray that you would meet all of their needs as well as they look at the levy renewal and the different things coming up, that you would just provide all of the resources that they need to continue doing a great job for our community. And we just put all of this in your hands. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And thank you for the service to Defiance you provide. This meeting is called to order. Let the record show that all members of council are present this evening. Would you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we get underway this evening, we have a couple special guests who have come to speak with us. Would you introduce yourself this evening?
I didn't know if you had to do roll call or anything, so. I'm Renee Wank. I am one of the counselors at Defiance Elementary School. And Mr. Corbett invited me to come and speak tonight. We have recently taken over the training portion of the mentoring program. And I just wanted to make it known to the community. It is something that we are desperately searching for mentors. Mentors are someone that is over the age of 18 that goes through a application process. It's on our school website. All they have to do is go to Defiance City Schools, go to the elementary page. You can click, print it off, fill it out, send it in to me, background check downtown with Mrs. Kurtzweiler, and then I do an in-person training. I match you up with a student that I have parent permission from. All of the meetings are done on school property, on school time. We ask twice a month, half an hour. And it's just a one-on-one interaction with a child. We have games and crafts that you do with them. A lot of the kids, I don't want to say just because of COVID, but it just seems like they're getting away from the communication with an adult, having that interaction, and they're craving it. I had a mentor this week that took chalk out with her little mentee, and she said, next thing I knew, all these kids were like, can we do it? Can we do it? Everybody was just jumping in, and they wanted that interaction, looking for good role models for sure. We have a variety of people now. We have police officers, we have firefighters, we have retirees, we have retired teachers, we have people in the financial industry, we have stay-at-home people, anything that can come in and provide that interaction with a child is just so important. And it's easy. It's not difficult at all. And I told John, the training's with me, so it's not too tough. I'm not too tough on anyone. So fill out the applications and we'll get you going. I don't know if you guys have questions.
Do we have any questions? Mr. Rusty?
I was part of the program when it initially started a number of years back.
Yeah.
And it was rewarding. A lot of it was like when we first started with the, like what you were saying earlier with the mentee, the growth from when you first started interacting with them till the last day when you had to say goodbye. I mean, it was like a good bond with an individual. And the biggest thing is kids say the darndest thing. I guess one good thing about it, but it's honest communication and it's good growth and it's a good program. And I wish maybe a lot of people from the community would participate. It's a very noble cause. So thank you.
Thank you for your input. I was going to say it's giving back to the pack is what I say. Give back to Defiance. If you want Defiance to thrive, you know, we have to invest in our future. So if we have community members that are willing to do that, it definitely. I share another real story real quick. I had a male that was waiting, and he was matched up this fall, and every day the next week, when's he coming again? When's he coming again? When's he coming again? So these kids just really, really appreciate the time that adults take to spend with them. You had a question?
2 questions.
Okay.
In all grades, K through 6?
Actually, we can do K through 12. Obviously, I am promoting the elementary K
Sure.
through 5 at the school that I'm at, but I do have some that are matched at the middle school, and I still have 2 at the high school. They took a hit with COVID. You know, once we had COVID and we weren't allowing people in, people kind of stopped once they went to the middle school.
Can you define the school day hours?
The elementary school, we start at 9:05 and we go to 3:20.
Thanks.
Most of the mentoring is done during lunch.
Okay.
I will share that with you, and that starts from like 10:45 all the way to 1:30.
Thank you.
That's not taking them out of their academic.
Renee, it's my understanding, different times I've talked to mentors, and Mr. Yosty, I'm sure you felt the same way. They benefit as well, the mentors
Oh, yeah.
as much as the mentees. It's been an eye-opening experience for a lot of our folks that have been in that mentoring program.
Yeah, it is rewarding both ways.
How long is the periods that a person communicates?
We asked for a year commitment as far as the matchup. We'd love you to continue on.
No, I mean, is it a half hour?
Oh, yeah, they
Timeline.
have, half hour, 40 minutes max. If it's lunch, they have lunch and then they have recess. So I tell the mentors, if you wanna just hang with them for lunch and then they go to recess, that's fine. If you wanna stay during their 20-minute recess as well, like I said, we have games, especially in the winter, nobody wants to go
The
outside.
children don't leave the school
Oh,
grounds?
no.
Okay.
The only exception will be like they took chalk outside
Okay,
with the mentee onto the playground.
okay.
Yeah, but no, they don't take them anywhere.
Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Uresti asked a question I was concerned, or didn't know how long the program was. 12-month commitment or 1-year commitment?
The school year, we don't have you meet up with them in the summer.
Okay,
And then in the fall, I will call again and say, do you still want to mentor? And match you up again in the fall, so you can
and
continue.
it could be with the same student?
Oh,
or it could be
definitely.
another student?
No. I mean, if that student hasn't moved away or,
Sure.
no, we'd like that to continue on. Yeah,
Thank
the one in the high school that I'm thinking of, she's had her since, I wanna say first grade. Yeah.
Mr. Corbett?
I just want to thank you for taking the time, excuse me, to come up and do this. I think this is my 3rd year, and it's been a rewarding time for me, I know, and I see the need every time I walk in that school, and sometimes it takes a village, guys, so I hope you get lots of calls.
I hope so too. And I did bring some flyers, which I'll leave if you want to pass on to someone else since you heard me talk. There is information on the back is the 3 steps and all the information, the websites and the addresses and phone numbers. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, thanks for being our guest.
Thank you.
Our next guest this evening, Lisa Weiner, Executive Director for the Defiance Humane Society. Thanks for being our guest this evening.
Thanks for having me. Who doesn't want to talk about feral cats on a Tuesday night, right? So Mayor McCann had asked what resources we might have to try to combat the overpopulation of cats, obviously, in our area. So I did a little research. The Humane Society, we just don't have the space there to do some type of a regular TNR program. We don't have the resources. We have a very small surgery suite. It works for us, but it wouldn't work for that large scale type of number that you're gonna look at a TNR program. So I did a little research, found an organization that's, they're out of the Columbus area. It's called the Rascal Unit, and it's a mobile unit, which is exactly what we need. We need, the resources that are already trained, they already know what to do, the medical resources are there, the supplies are there. They come in with basically an RV, and that's already set up with a surgery suite and all the prep that they need. Everything's ready to go. They will do somewhere in the neighborhood of, they plan for 70 to 100 cats at any given visit. They will, and again, they handle all the medical stuff, period. Everything is self-contained in this unit that they bring. The resources that they need from a community is going to be obviously dollars, but also we need volunteers that will go out and track the cats. So it's kind of a 3-day process is what they plan for. That first day is really going out, setting traps. The second day is, or I should say setting traps and catching. The second day is doing the surgeries, and the third day is allowing them to recuperate and then taking those cats back to where they trapped them. So it's definitely a community effort. It's not, as easy as you take your own cat to the vet and, you know, everything's pretty easy in a carrier. So we're gonna need volunteers from the community. We're gonna need to show them, which isn't a big deal, but show them how to trap. We're gonna need to provide the traps, which is gonna be an expense as well. And then have those volunteers available to bring the animals, transport them. We'll need people there to care for those animals for that period of time, and then transporting back to where they were caught. So it's a big undertaking, it's a big project, but if it's planned out well, it's certainly doable, and these types of resources are just invaluable to be able to get these folks to come into our community and help with this problem that we have. And it's not just our problem, it's all over the country sadly, but I have talked to them. They are willing to come, they're willing to put us on their schedule for next year. They're actually putting those schedules together right now, this time of year for 2023. What I would recommend is that we would plan for them to be here twice. Try it out, let's see how it works, maybe do a spring and a fall type of a deal. Obviously, we'd need the traps, so we would need funding for that as well. And then we would use some of our resources, what we have at the shelter, as far as people, to try to help orchestrate this whole thing, if that makes sense. What they say to plan for as far as dollars, for a visit, so if you're looking at 70 to 100 cats, somewhere in that neighborhood, they're saying plan for $5,000. It is a low-cost spay and neuter provider, so it is very low cost compared to what you would see at a regular veterinary office. They will do other treatments, like if the animal, let's say there's an animal there and it's a healthy animal for the most part, but maybe they can see some type of a infection, they'll give it that shot to help with that. If it's an animal that's sick, they're gonna know that, and that's when we would look to them for their expertise to say, is this animal sick, should it be euthanized? And they would handle that. We don't want sick animals out there, that's not helping anybody. And there's certainly no point in trying to alter them at that point. So, but this group has been around about 16 years. They're vets and vet techs, and this is what they do. They do thousands and thousands of cats and dogs. They service not just TNR programs, but they do this mobile unit for other reasons too. So, questions?
Mr. Mast?
Have you or anyone else been able to put maybe a number as far as feral cats together? Are we able to see pockets of concern where these packs are at to pinpoint these areas?
There's pockets for sure. As far as the number, I don't have any idea. I really don't.
Is this something we're gonna need to do a survey so we can figure out where we're gonna go, where they're gonna need trapped? I mean.
I would say, that
By
probably,
survey, I mean-
it probably wouldn't hurt. I mean, there's enough people around, and we get them at our clinic. We get what I call the frequent flyers. They're bringing in cats regularly, and we have spaces open for them to do that. I think it would be pretty easy to target those areas for sure, but that's an excellent point, to really be able to target specifically neighborhoods that need it.
Mr. Hancock?
The amount that you had, the 5,000, is that just for their service for the 3 days?
Correct.
Cause we'll still need to invest in live traps
Correct.
as well. And
Correct.
also will this be more focused on, the city, or could this be a county thing as well?
They will do whatever. It doesn't matter to them. If it's, but for this purpose, I think correct me, Mike, was for the city limits. But it could be for whatever we needed.
I'm thinking of the other smaller villages if they have issues as well.
Hicksville has a
Let's say
severe problem.
Hicksville, Sherwood, May,
Yeah.
Evansport.
Yep. One other thing we do need too, as a community or for this effort, is some type of warehouse type facility to do this, so they're mobile, so they can pretty much pull up anywhere. But we need a facility, kind of an open warehouse that you can house the animals. So we're gonna trap them, we bring them, the next day they have surgery, the following day they go back, but during that time, we need a place to house them and care for them.
Do you know what size they're looking for?
It-
3,000 square
it's-
feet or?
It's gonna be a couple thousand square feet for sure, cause you want, now the good news, we're only doing cats, if you were doing cats and dogs and everything, you'd need a bigger area certainly. On some of these other community projects that they do, they'll mix it, but with just cats, it's a little easier, they're gonna be in traps, but you do need to space them out, we'll need, which is not a big deal, sheets and things to cover them so they're not all freaked out. So some of those resources we certainly have and can get from our supporters, so that's not a big deal. It's the traps, those are roughly $50 a piece. And I think we're gonna need 100 of them.
At least.
Yeah, we've got some at the shelter, but we probably have 20, but, we're gonna need some mass quantities of that. For sure.
And we'll probably catch about anything. We could catch possum, groundhog.
Well, and that's why we have to train people on that, setting the trap is, they're pretty self-explanatory, but what happens when you get the raccoon or, whatever else, so we've gotta train people with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rusty?
Probably as this develops, if it is approved, by us or in whatever capacity, is probably setting up a communication center. I think the reach out to the community, because if you read Facebook, they know where they are.
Sure.
And if the reach out to them is, this is what you need to do, and the communication back to us, then basically it makes the effort a lot easier.
Yes.
Then the second part to it is on the volunteers. Yes, there are a lot of good-hearted people in the community that would probably be willing to help out. But would it be also something good where you would reach out maybe to the schools? And sometimes a noble effort by upperclassmen or classmen that basically could help us out in an effort of being volunteers to help this, bring the cats in or whatever.
Sure. And care for them too.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
That's all I have right now.
Other questions?
Any other, Mr. Mast?
Before we make any commitment, do we need to feel out the community to make sure we're gonna have the volunteers and support that's gonna be necessary to carry it out?
I think so. I mean, obviously it's a problem, you guys hear it on a regular basis, you're getting it from the community that something needs to be done. So the issue's there for sure, but we have to have community support to get this
We
done.
could say, sure, we'll give you the money, we got the traps, but if we don't have the bodies when it
Right.
comes time to do something,
Right.
then it's gonna be an
And
issue.
I wish I had the bodies at the shelter, I barely have enough to get through any given day out there. We've been short-staffed for 2 years, so I can commit myself or even Stacy, but to be able to commit other workers, I can't even do that at this point.
So I
So
guess at
it's
this
gonna
point,
take a
I'd like to ask then at this point that we get some feedback from anybody listening and see,
Yep.
feel out people to see if they're gonna be people willing to aid in this and people that think it's a necessary thing to happen.
Josh, maybe the thing to do, and I think what we've talked about in Board of Control, is to ask the council to consider an appropriation in the upcoming budget. We're about to have those discussions, $15,000. It would pay for 2 visits and 50 of the traps. We can appropriate the money, then we can go through the logistics of whether it's gonna pan out and all that, and we either don't spend the money or it's already appropriated and ready to go. So I mean, that's an option. We kind of plan to present that to you when we get into the conversation in the next few weeks, but we're obviously
That
having
seems
that
like a
piece tonight.
Proper way to go.
And then, if I can, my only question is to have 50 traps, is that a storage issue? Are they collapsible or do you?
We have the storage right now at the shelter, so
Okay.
the barn, we could certainly store it there. for the time, you know, until we need them.
I think Mr. Leonard was 100 traps at $50
That's what I meant,
apiece.
100 traps, but, yeah, I mean, they would be reusable from one year to the
Right,
next. and
they'd be reusable for, yes,
some
for
kind of
every
long-term
time you
storage.
need
That's
it.
a one-time expense, other than.
Right,
Yeah.
but the storage is what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Mr. Waxler?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is this something we ought to be looking at, you know, the people, there's a lot of people out there concerned and talking about this. Maybe we ought to be looking on social media, whatever, put something out there for donations.
The people who know where the cats are the people who have them in their neighborhoods. their
Right,
yards.
and I'm saying maybe
You know,
some people
Joe's
wanna.
idea about getting volunteers to maybe set the traps in those areas, collect the cats,
Right, but I'm
that kind of thing.
talking for the money part of it, you know, maybe there's people out there willing to help,
Oh,
you know. I don't know, I'm just saying.
One of the GoFundMe accounts or
Yeah,
something.
I mean,
or
something-
accounts for cats.
I don't know.
At least a donation for traps, if nothing else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we could use it for something, I mean. We just have to be something that you'd have to sub, so it goes into a fund or wherever that, sub just for that, you know, so.
There is too, and Mike, I sent this to Debbie as well, but they do have their minimum for coming is $2,300. So in, you know, cause you never know what you're gonna get, certainly. We might get a whole slew of raccoons, who knows, but they do charge, so that's their minimum for coming to it, which isn't bad,
Do we spay and neuter raccoon?
maybe.
Mrs. Crutch?
The worst idea.
With the $15,000 or what we're thinking about allotting, would that also include the warehouse building that we might have to rent
That,
for the 3 days or
that
6 days?
facility remains to be seen.
Right.
Okay.
What that's gonna be. So it'd be a room, this room's about 1,200 square feet, so, you know,
Okay.
something twice the size of this or thereabouts. Shouldn't be too difficult to come up with, Mrs. Crutch. As far as, you know, use it for a few days, clean it up good afterwards when you're done, and then you can go on from there.
Is that enough money though, if we say 15,000, or should we say?
That's what we ran by Mrs. Weiner, $5,000 for the
Okay.
supplies, two $5,000, so 2 visits the first year, just to see how we do with the volunteer piece, how it gets off the ground, can we trap a couple hundred cats each time to make it worth it? I don't know.
Well, like John said, we don't use it, we don't use it, I mean.
True.
Right. I agree with you. I would give it a little extra, cause you might have to rent something. We're gonna need cleaning supplies, you know, there's.
Towels, blankets.
Yeah, exactly, just the little things, so I would give it a little extra cushion. Again, if you don't need it, you just leave it. It's not like you're paying it out and not getting it back. So that would be my recommendation.
Mr. Resty?
The timelines for setting up an appointment, to be on their schedule, is that done this year?
It's done right now.
Okay,
They're setting up
so-
their schedule for next year.
If, the expectation is met and exceeded next year, would we be able to schedule another one or, within that same year?
Yeah, and the lady I dealt with, she's actually one of the main vets. She recommends if you wanna schedule, she'd rather have you on the schedule, and if you have to cancel, that's fine. They've got plenty of other people in the background waiting, so it's easier to schedule it now and get as many on as you want.
Okay.
And if we need to cancel, you know, if the first one doesn't work out so well, we can always cancel the later one.
Mr. Corbett?
I changed my mind.
You changed your mind.
I wasn't gonna bring this up, but this is obviously a countywide problem. And obviously, it's been going on for a while because we've been talking about it an awful lot. And something needs to get started, I understand that, but has anybody entertained, and this is probably more for the county commissioner, some sort of cat tax or levy to help fund this? You guys always seem to be looking for donations or fundraisers and short of cash, and if you had something that was more permanent, it would allow your budget to be easier to follow.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Right now, I'm working on my own negotiations with the county for our annual,
Mr.
and
Mack might have it in with those guys.
Yeah, but you're talking feral cats, you're not talking somebody's in their house.
I know. But we have two groups of people here. We have people that wanna get rid of feral cats, and we have the people that love cats and wanna have cats. I mean, it's, both of them have the same concern. The feral cat population's too large. And and I don't see this stopping. I mean, this is, they reproduce, so this might be an ongoing thing for years to come.
And truly, a TNR program is the only real long-term solution, and you've gotta keep it going. I mean, that's what the data's showing. That's, you've got people that do this regularly and they've been tracking the data for many, many years in counties much larger than ours, that have had this problem, and that has been the one solution that works for them.
And that's a good start here for now, but as a long-term solution, we should probably be more inclusive. And I know that, I know Hicksville's got it at the fairgrounds. I saw an article about a young boy that was gonna do a service project to try to take care of the feral cats in the
He
fairgrounds.
did it with us, so our vet did all of that for free.
That's good.
And we got the supplies donated from our suppliers, told him what we were looking to do. And he did, he went up, he and his family would trap them, take them to the vet, they kinda did it as a one-man band, but, they made progress. And it was awesome to see a young man like that, 10 years old, that was willing to make a difference.
Exactly, but 2 years from now or 3 years from now, cause they love to go back to the fairgrounds, they'll be back at it again. They
Yes.
just, I don't know how they know, but they just know where to go, so.
Yeah, they do. So it's an ongoing commitment, ultimately.
Mr. Esty?
Now, there is also an ongoing problem with people who dump cats. I mean, they start out in a nice, warm environment and safe, and then all of a sudden, they find themselves out behind somebody's yard or whatever. I mean, that's the hard end, and you can read the things on Facebook where all of a sudden the cat follows the individual, or the cat basically, so and so forth, it's not scared of individuals. And that's the touching part of this whole thing, what happens to them. So I think this is a good program. Whenever this is brought up, I think it's something that needs to be supported by this council. So, thank you.
You say the most difficult piece of this, which we've talked about, is gonna be getting the volunteers. Lisa and I have discussed that. And I hope we're pleasantly surprised, but as you said, you're having trouble getting volunteers. The lady that spoke before you talked about a mentoring program in our schools. They're down on numbers and need help there. So, but again, Mr. Leonard laid it out, $15,000. If we need to go 16,000 to cover some of those ancillary expenses, that's what we will do. And that will be part of our budget proposal that you'll be seeing here over the next few weeks. That's been our plan since meeting with Lisa a couple times, and thank you for taking time to do that.
Sure.
Just see how it goes. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Would you want me to contact these folks and try to get on their schedule? Do you think that,
Obviously, I think you heard it's gonna find its way fine through budget.
Sure, sure.
And I think you should do that. Lisa, you're the expert. I think we're all relying on your opinion on how to do this and what the best time of the year would be to A, get volunteers, and B, trap these cats. Are they easier to trap in March, or are they easier to trap in June? I don't know.
I would recommend that we do it, obviously the weather here is gonna play a little bit of a part, but I would say April, May, the earlier the better. And then when anybody who says there's kitten season has no idea, there's no season, it's the whole year. So it is literally, it used to be spring, right? That was kitten season, it's not, it's the whole year. So I would say we try to get on their calendar as early as possible with the weather being decent. So around here, you're looking at March, April, and then do it again in August, September.
And Mr. Rusty, you talked about people that have cats and then choose to let them go. There's article after article after article that I've read in trade publications that come across my desk and come to me online about during the pandemic, everybody went out and got a pet. They got a dog, they got a cat, they got a bird, they got an iguana, they went out and got a pet because we were all stuck at home. And then guess what? They had to go back to work. And veterinarians got really, really busy because people had all these pets and they needed veterinary care, they needed vaccinations and other things. And then people realized how expensive veterinary care could be, how expensive it was to have a pet, and all of a sudden they were dumping them off at Lisa's shelter.
Yeah.
And then the shelter's full, or if that didn't work, they, as you said, Mr. Rusty, they just cut them loose.
Yeah.
And the adoption rate for pets early pandemic, unbelievable numbers.
And we're seeing the results across the country now. It's
Yeah.
not just here, it's across the country. Every shelter is full. In my 5 years, I've never had it full so long. I mean, it's been full the whole year, but we've literally had to turn away the dog warden, we've had to turn away the sheriff's office. There's no more kennels. So it's dogs and cats. And to your point, you know, talking about people dumping their cats, you'd be surprised at how many people will walk in the front door with a dog and say, "It's a stray, I just found it," and walk out the door, and the dog is looking out the door at them, whining. And we find out it's theirs in about 10 minutes, but you know, it's amazing how many people can actually do that. And I guess go to sleep at night, but it happens every
I
day.
hope with a project like this too, that there's an element of education and awareness that we can provide to the public too about that same
Yes.
thing. If you want a cat, you know, realize the responsibility. People aren't children. If you want a black cat for Halloween, you're gonna keep it. You're not
Yeah.
just gonna get it for the season.
Yeah.
So hopefully with this kind of program, we can push some education and awareness for people too.
Sure. And this group's really good with that too. They've been doing it a long time, so they've got the data, they've got the information to provide that we can give out as well. Other questions?
Do we have any other questions, comments? If not, thank you for being our guest this evening.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys.
With that, I've reviewed the index minutes for the city council meeting of October 11th. Do we have a motion to correct or amend the index minutes as presented? If not, I will approve them. And do we have any liaison meeting requests or reports? Mr. Hancock?
Yes, I'd like to schedule a joint finance, water, sewer, committee of the whole on November 8th, 5 to 7. And also discuss the 2023 capital project priorities. Next Tuesday. No,
No.
two Tuesdays. November 8th.
So-
Sorry, November 8th.
Agreed on the 8th?
Yeah.
So you'd like a meeting of the whole on Tuesday, November 8th, starting at 5 o'clock here at the council chambers.
Correct.
Need a motion.
Yep, and so
So moved.
moved, second,
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes?
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
okay? So Tuesday, November 8th, 5 o'clock here. Anything else? All right. Do we have any comments from council? Mr. Rusty?
Sent up an email in regards to some complaints on fireworks over the weekend. Do you have any updates on that?
Yes, I do, Mr. Uresti. I did find out from the sheriff there were 6 calls made on Saturday in regards to fireworks. There were some fireworks that went off in the city of Defiance on Saturday. We found out, and after some research and looking into it, it was the holiday of Diwali, which is covered under the state law. It is actually a 5-day holiday that began on Saturday. So those 6 calls that went to the 911 center, according to the 911 center, it was explained that it was under the fireworks Diwali ordinance, or not ordinance, state law to cover it. But our law director and the assistant law director, I think, came up with some materials for the police department just to make sure they have some extra handouts of information on fireworks dates that are allowable. And that was sent out to the police department yesterday, I believe. Also, after I thought about it, after we exchanged those emails, I think on holidays past, we, and not that this has been going on forever, it's obviously our first year under this new law, but I think we had sent out or posted something on Facebook about fireworks before the holiday began, and I don't know that we did that for Diwali. So we will make sure that we get that done in the future for holidays coming up in regards to fireworks.
And I just want to emphasize, Mr. Uresti, that the law allows for the ignition of the 1.4 G consumer grade fireworks, not the 1.3 G, 1.5 G commercial grade fireworks, because I heard the explosions from my neighborhood on the north side, and I wondered. So I don't know what was ignited, but I just want to remind the constituents it's for the consumer grade fireworks only.
Is there like a, and then I know we talked about this earlier, maybe a month or so ago or whatever, but is there like age limits, oversight, those types of things, or can just anybody just, because it's a holiday, basically ignite fireworks or?
Yes, both our code now, since we've adopted the codified ordinance, and the Ohio Revised Code sets age limits of who may ignite the fireworks. The other thing, knowing this neighborhood, they're supposed to be within a certain distance, ignited from a certain distance, 150 feet for aerial devices and 50 feet for ground devices from another structure. So that's something that we will also educate our law enforcement. Some of these neighborhoods, as you know, are very dense and don't have that kind of radius. So yes, if they're igniting even 1.4 G consumer grade fireworks within those limits, then that's obviously unlawful.
And even if they are following all of those sections of the law, as you and I discussed, there are certain times of year it is very dry out. Leaves are starting to fall, they're on the ground. Fields are starting to get taken care of by our farming community. It's dry out there. We want people to do it, intelligently. We don't want to cause any huge issues based on that.
Mr. Esty?
My last question. Alcohol. If somebody's going to be igniting fireworks, is alcohol permitted when they're doing this or in the area that's being done?
No, it's right in the codified ordinance for Ohio. They're not in possession of alcohol while you're setting off fireworks.
No.
No.
So if there's an address, and the fireworks are being ignited from that address, and there is alcohol that's available, that would not be legal?
States in the code of ordinance, the person setting off the fireworks not to be.
Depends on who's setting them off and who's drinking.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be in possession of alcohol if you are setting off the fireworks.
Okay.
There are many stipulations in that law, so and it's gonna come down to, it seems like, if a complaint's made, are they gonna have to go and do a checklist of, are all these things being followed? I mean, that's.
And that's what you guys are doing, basically putting the checklist for the police officers to follow when there's a complaint?
Like I said, the law director and the assistant law director got together some information, I think, that had come out. And we're gonna continue to work with the police department to make sure that we're getting things taken care of in an appropriate manner.
All right, thank you.
So with those 6 phone calls, which I was one of them because I had a lot of people contacting me, did the police go out and check and make sure that they are 1.3 fireworks, or were they 1.4?
I don't know if they were able to inspect the fireworks only because they had already been ignited. But
I mean, I just didn't know, how will we know what kind of fireworks they're actually using if they don't go and check it out with those phone calls?
I believe the police department did do several drives past the area. I don't know that they zeroed in at the time on a specific residence for it. Or
they were extremely loud.
That's what I heard.
these laws, I mean, and I expressed my frustration internally, I think in an email this morning. I mean, these laws weren't exactly written with enforcement in mind, and that is our challenge is,
Okay.
I mean, the fireworks, I mean, the shell's gone, I mean,
Right.
by the time the police get there.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if you did not see the Ohio General Assembly amend this law a few more times. If nothing else, to define when Diwali is.
It was Monday, technically, it's 24th. I had to look it up.
But as I believe it was Mr. O'Donnell said, it's a 5-day holiday.
I know you could do it so many days before the actual holiday and after, so I did research that.
I wouldn't recommend you enact anything that allows fireworks for the 12 days of Christmas.
Good idea. Thank you.
Any other, Mr. Hancock?
I just wanted to compliment the water treatment tour that I attended. It was very nice. Mr. Mast was there as well. It was well presented. Even though I had been through the new area, went through the other area, and it was very informative. Learned every time. So thank you. It was very nice.
Thank you.
Oh, and Mr. Mack was there as well.
No other comments from council? All right, to the Board of Control, Mayor McCann.
Thank you. Busy week the rest of the week. Thursday night will be trick or treat from 6 to 7:30. We would just ask that as the motoring public moves around the city, they be very, very careful and very, very mindful of our young ghosts and goblins that are gonna be out there trick or treating. And then on Saturday is the annual Lions Club Parade. That will start at 7 o'clock as always, and head north up Clinton and then come back down the south side. I remind everyone that at 6 o'clock, the Purple Heart Bridge will be closing to traffic coming into Defiance, and will stay closed till the end of the parade. I know that does cause some folks frustration. They coming downtown to attend the parade and they get to the Purple Heart Bridge and can't go any further. Many have parked then in Pontiac Park and just walked from there, but 6 o'clock, that bridge will be closing, and I'm guessing Debbie will be sending out reminders to everyone about that as the time grows closer. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for the reminders. Mr. Mack.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Earlier today, I submitted to council a packet for sidewalk projects, city sidewalk projects for next year. I wanted to briefly go over just a couple of the points to it, and then if you want to look at it further, delve into some of the maps and things like that were presented, you can get a hold of me at any time or have questions during the capital budget. But the first major sidewalk project is going to be we're proposing to be along Ginter Road. The Ginter Road corridor is scheduled to be repaved next year, and there has been a lot of talk and work on design to create a multi-use path along the entire length of it. If you're ever out in that area, you know people are out walking and biking and all over. We think this will give people a much safer much safer way to flow with pedestrian traffic. So we likely will be asking or recommending $275,000 in allocations from council in the capital budget for that project. The point 2 was repairs due to city trees. I think you've seen it for a number of years. As our trees grow, sometimes they cause the sidewalks to buckle. We're likely looking for a recommendation of $50,000 to continue on that list, to continue to knock those properties out and get them taken care of. 3 are handicap accessibility points, which you see our engineer get done with a lot of the repaving contracts and programs she goes to as they're repaving or rebuilding. When they come upon a sidewalk area that is not ADA compliant, they go in and fix the ADA compliance for those sidewalks. 4 is actually a little bit newer one, or not really a newer one, but bringing back an older one, is to reinstate the city sidewalk maintenance program. And Sean, you can feel free to correct me, but under city codified ordinance 905.16, the engineer will be sending out workers next year to survey and to mark areas of sidewalks that have fallen into disrepair. We will give the people along that area a year to get them brought up to code. If it's not done within that first year, we will have the city contract to get it taken care of and then assess the property owner. We won't need any money for next year because next year we'll just be surveying and doing the inspections. The following year, in 2024, then is when we would need an allocation to get some of those projects done. But I would like council's blessing to move forward with reinitiating that. We're looking at starting in the Laddies Grove area to start with. Actually, if you look up on the community action map, it'd be in yellow. And then we get on to future planning. I know future planning has been a huge topic for council. It's something that's been discussed quite a bit. What I would ask is that we wait for the comprehensive plan to be completed before we get into it. I think once that is completed, we're going to have a lot more information. One of the pieces of information is this map itself, which is a draft right now, but looking at dividing the city up into smaller subsectors that are going to list the strengths and weaknesses of each of those sectors. One of the things that is a key category, and Councilwoman Crutch, you can feel free to agree or disagree, I know you've been in on those meetings, is mobility and connectivity. So I think once we have that data in, we can look at creating a list, a priority list of where we want to hit sidewalks in the city. So those are the 5 points that I wanted to touch on. Like I said, if you want to read through it, look through some of the maps that were provided, and have any questions, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. That's all I have.
Mr. Resty.
I brought this up several times in council, and one of my biggest things that I've always addressed was putting together a master maintenance program. I think the last bullet point you have, 5, I think does start to address where my thoughts are, where the sidewalk program needs to go. And it'll be interesting once that comes about that we can go from there on it to basically bring something on paper on how it's gonna work.
That's right.
And so I'm looking forward to that.
I think once the comprehensive plan comes out, there's gonna be a lot of information provided to, and like I said, Councilwoman, you can feel free to agree or disagree, but
I agree.
I think it's gonna provide a whole host of information in different areas of the city once it's completed, so.
Good.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. O'Donnell.
I have nothing at this time, Mr. President.
Mr. Leonard.
Just one item, the Board of Control approved a purchase order that falls between our $15,000 and $25,000 thresholds. It was for the purchase, again, high fuel costs. So it was the purchase of fuel for the streets department from Porter's BP in the amount of $19,600. That's all I have.
Thank you. And this evening, we only have one ordinance for consideration. Would you read the caption?
First reading by caption only. An ordinance consenting to the inspection of a bridge within the municipality and pledging cooperation with the Ohio Director of Transportation, preliminary legislation, ODOT project ID number 117554.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Ohio Department of Transportation recommends bridge inspection about once every 24 months based on their manual for bridge inspection and as codified in section 5501.47 of the Ohio Revised Code. ODOT has a program for bridges that aren't on state routes within municipalities and villages where the Department of Transportation will in effect pay for the bridge inspection and at no cost to the local government. So the city has one bridge that we are responsible for maintaining. You have to squint really hard to realize that it's a bridge. It's on Columbus Avenue, and it goes over Preston Run. It's right after Greenler. And the proposed ordinance before you consents to giving access to ODOT and its contractors to the city-owned right-of-way and underneath so that they can get down there and inspect the bridge. And passage and entry into the legislative consent agreement will help ensure that this bridge remains in compliance with state and federal laws.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. O'Donnell? Mr. Resty.
If no questions, motion to suspend and call.
We have a motion to suspend and call.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hancock.
Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch? Yes. And Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second, Mr. Engel.
Mr. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Rusty?
Yes.
Mr. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Mrs. Crutch?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
And Mr. Corbett?
Yes.
With that, this ordinance is adopted. And if we don't have any issues of citizens' concerns, do we have a motion to, you do?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? Do we have a second? Second. Second. All those in favor of adjourning for this evening, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?